How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Dal, Daf 54 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, your friends. It's again the morning. I have coffee. Just in case you didn't believe me, I just demonstrated that. And very distracted this morning. Very distracted this morning. Yesterday too. I didn't even learn today's daf because I have a whole dance of how I prepare the daf. So this daf that we're doing today, I already learned. When did I learn this daf? Maybe on Sunday? What's today? Wednesday? Maybe I learned this daf on Sunday or Monday. And then No, because it's Wednesday now, which means I was supposed to record it yesterday on Tuesday. You see, it's a whole dance. It's Wednesday morning, which means I was supposed to record it yesterday afternoon, Tuesday, which means it's the daf that I learned on Sunday. So I learned this daf on Sunday, I reviewed it yesterday. I'm recording it today. Now today's daf that I would learn now, which I believe I would record on Friday, I got so distracted I didn't even learn it. That never happened, ever. That doesn't happen. But whatever, I'll have to do it, I guess, on Friday. You said, it's a whole dance. Alright, so we're going to start in Daf. I saw Reb Hillel Lester in Shuk Machne Yehuda the other day. That was awesome. It was good to see you, Reb Hillel. Thanks for saying hi. Alright. Okay, we're in Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. Okay, here we go. All right, drink a little bit of coffee. A little bit of caffeine. All right, we're going to start on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis at the bottom, about 5 lines from the bottom. Oh, this is gewaldig. All a Jew needs is a little bit of Torah fuel to get the engines going. And then all is good, right? A little BavaKama. What a Jew needs is a little BavaKama. So the Mishnah had said that if a ox falls into a pit, this stuff gives you chayas. An ox in a pit, that'll really get you going. An ox falls into a pit and it's got vessels, and the ox breaks, the vessels break. So you can be chayiv for the ox, the potter for the vessel. This is better than anything else. Maslisim to look Reb Yehuda. So our Mishnah that says that you can be potter for the vessels, that you can be potter for the kelim, is of course, as we know, unlike Reb Yehuda, the Tanya that we learned in the price, Reb Yehuda mechayiv al nizkei kelim baber, that Reb Yehuda is mechayiv when vessels break in a pit. My time of the Rabbanon. So now we are gonna explore the opinion of the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda, as we've seen sprinkled throughout BavaKama, that of course we are nearly halfway BavaKama. Friends, again, take a minute and give yourself a pat on the back. You all are doing great. Halfway through BavaKama. It's big. BavaKama, as we've said in the past, that BavaKama is the big leagues. Halfway in. This is amazing stuff. We're really moving. We're really moving. We're accomplishing. So, my time of the Rabbanon, how come the rabbis say that you're potter when vessels break in a pit? Damar krok, because the pasuk says v'nafal shama shor o chamor. That it says in the pasuk that if an ox or a donkey fall into the pit, so you'd be chayiv. Shor v'lo adam, chamor v'lo kelim. An ox, to the exclusion of if people fall into a pit and die, if they get injured, that's a different story, and die. And vessels fall into a pit, and it's an interesting thing I think that we saw the other day about vessels is that when a vessel breaks, that's be'etzem, it's death, right? So the damage to a vessel is also the killing in a sense of a vessel. So you're potter basically for damages, for breaking vessels in a pit. Okay, gewaldig. Okay, fine. So the rabbis say, okay, shor v'lo adam chamav v'lo kelim, you're potter for nizkei kelim baber. Rabbi Yehuda, l'rabbis sakelim. Rabbi Yehuda says, it says, v'nafal shama shor o chamor. The o is going to include vessels to say that you're chayiv for nizke kelim baber. Okay. V'rabbanon o mibayle lechalik. The rabbis say no. We need the word o to say either this or that. I.e., you're not. I might think that you're only chayev when an ox and a donkey fall into a pit together. Therefore, it says shor o chamor. It could be either a shor or a chamor. Rabbi Yehuda nechalik mi v'nafel nafke. Rabbi Yehuda learns out that it can be either or from v'nafel, which is singular. Even if just one of them falls into the pit, you will be chayiv. V'abanon v'nafel tu v'mashma. Whereas the rabbi said no, v'nafel could even be referring to many, right? As Rashi points out, there are other examples of like v'osa b'tzal v'aliyav. Right, so you see v'osa, which is singular, but it's b'tzal v'aliyav, two people, right? So you see that a singular could be in reference to multiple, and so the fact is, as v'nafel doesn't necessarily mean that it's singular. According to the rabbis, therefore we need o in order to divide up. Okay, now, fact the Gemara ema, I will say v'nafel klal shor v'chomer prat ho ho. So let's say that v'nafel is a klal, and then it says, right? So v'nafel, it sounds like if anything falls, but then it says shor v'chomer. Those are specifics. Prat, klal ufrat. And as we know from our learning together over the past about 4 years now, when you have a klal ufrat, ein bichlal ela mashi bifrat. Klal ufrat basically comes to say it is limited only to the prat. Shor v'chomer in midiachrin lo. So I'll say that you're only chayav if an ox or a donkey fall into a pit, nothing else. If anything else falls into a pit, potter. So amrei balabor yishalim chazer v'cholo. So, but when it says balabor yishalim, that's general again. It's another klal. So you have a klal ufrat uchlal. So it's not a situation of klal ufrat. It's a scenario of klal ufrat uchlal. Iatodon ela ke'ein haprat. In which case, it is not limited only to the prat. It's not only shor v'chomer. Rather, it's things that are similar to a shor v'chomer. Ma prat meforish ba'alei chayim avkol ba'alei chayim. So just like oxen and donkeys are ba'alei chayim, are animals, they're alive. So also anything that falls in and is alive would be included. But fact the Gemara, if we're learning out from klal ufrat uchlal, where am I? Ima aprat meforish dover shenevelasa mitama b'maga uvmasa ha ha. But if you look at an ox and a donkey have a shared characteristic in that yes, they're both alive, but also if they die and they are nevela, their nevela is mitame, right? It's an avatuma. It's mitame b'maga if you touch it, also b'masa, right? If like there's a hunk of donkey flesh in a bag and you're carrying the bag, even if you don't actually touch the hunk of flesh directly. So let's say that so shor v'chomer share a characteristic. Sorry, Mom. Share a characteristic, which is, Mom. If I apologize to my mom, I can buy more time. So they share Mom. So they share a characteristic that not only are they alive, but when they are a nevela, when they're dead in an unslaughtered way, they are mitami b'maga uvemasa. So I'll say, what's it coming to include? Avkol davar shenevelasa mitama b'mago v'masa. So the only things they'd be chayiv for if they fall into a pit are things that are alive, and when they are nevela, they're mitame b'mago v'masa. Aval ofis, but birds, birds are not. Their carcass is not mitame. Their nevela is not mitame b'mago v'masa. They're only mitame b'beis abliya, I believe. If you swallow it, at that point it becomes tummy. Okay, so to the exclusion of ophis. So I'll say that if a bird falls into a pit, potter. So which the Gemara says, no, do not exclude ophis. Ophis also if they fall into a pit, will be chayiv. Because if it was coming to say only things that are metame b'mago v'masa to the exclusion of ofis, imkei nichtov rachmana chad prato. Right? If we were only coming to include things that are similar in that they're metame b'mago v'masa to the exclusion of ofis, so then I would say either shor or chamor, but we have both shor and chamor to include also ofis. To which the Gemara says meh. The reason why it says shor and chamor is because it was unable to write only one of them. Because hey nichtov, if we were to write only shor or chamor, which one would it be? Ikasav shor, if it would only write shor, hava amino, I would think, karev legabi mizbeach in, sheinu karev legabi mizbeach lo. That if it only gave the example of an ox, I might think, you're only chayev for animals that can be offered as a korban, like an ox. But if a donkey were to fall in, or a camel, or a horse, so then you would be potter. Because of achmane chomer, and if we would only have chomer, a donkey, so you think, okay, well, a donkey is alive, it doesn't need to be offered as a korban. So it cannot be offered as a korban. Hava amina, kadosh b'bechore in, shein kadosh b'bechore lo. I might think, okay, but only animals that have the halacha of bechor that apply to it. I guess that applies to wait, what does that even mean? A donkey as kedushas bechor? I don't even know what that means. I should probably look that up. Right, yeah, of course, right. It needs to be redeemed by a sheep. Right, exactly. Yeah, okay. So I might think that only, where am I? But obviously you're not going to offer it as a korban. So, where am I? So, okay, fine. So therefore, if it would only say chomer, if it would only say a donkey, so I might think that only animals that have kedushas bechor, that have the halachas of bechor, to the exclusion of, for example, like camels and horses. So where am I? So because of Rachmana Chomer Avmina Kadosh B'chor in Kadosh Lo B'chor, okay, Shein Kadosh B'chor Lo. So therefore it says shor, sort of the extra superfluous animal, is coming to say that don't limit it to animals that have kedushas bechor, but even animals like camels and like horses that do not have kedushas bechor, still, if those fall into a pit, you'll be chayiv. So we see that no, you needed to say both shor and chomer, but I could still say shor and chomer are unique in that they're metame b'mago v'masa to the exclusion of ofis. So elo on my kra, rather look, the pasuk says v'ameis yiyeh lo. 1 second. Okay. V'ameis yiyeh lo kol debar misa. Look, the pasuk says that, if an animal falls into a pit and dies, it says v'ameis yiyeh lo, and the mace will belong, I think, to the owner of the of the animal. So kol debar misa, anything that can die, you'll be chayiv for if it falls into a pit, including ofis. Now, if that's the case, that specifically we're talking about things that are alive, that if they fall into a pit, you'd be chayiv. Well, then bein l'rabbanon dekamimaiti lu lekelim. Well, the rabbis have, it says shor v'lo adam, chomer v'lo kelim. So the pasuk is coming to exclude kelim. We need a pasuk to say that you're potter for kelim, but why do I need a pasuk to say chomer v'lo kelim? I know it obviously excludes kelim because it says v'amesi elo. It needs to be something that can die. Vessels don't die. Uvin the Rabbi Yehuda dekamar bilu lekelim, and Rabbi Yehuda, he takes it even one step further and says that if vessels break in a pit, you're chayiv, but vessels are not alive. How come you're chayiv? Kelim b'nei misaninu. Are vessels able to die? Amish v'yosan zoy misasan. Like I said a few minutes ago, that when they break, that is essentially how they die, and therefore the rabbis need to exclude vessels. And Rabbi Yehuda says, yeah, vessels are included. Shtikul coffee. Ulurav de Amar bar shechiva olav teira lehavlov lo lechabato. But now, according to Rav, who says that what you're chayiv for in a pit is not for the bump that incurs when the item hits the ground, rather it's for the shmek. That when an animal falls into a pit, there's a shmek of foul air, that's what does it. But if that's the case, vessels don't smell. They don't have noses. And even if there is a nose on a vessel, it doesn't work. It would just be for aesthetic reasons, but not for function. Maybe as a handle to a cup or something. Could be an interesting handle. Uncle Bonim. So obviously vessels are going to be excluded from being damaged in a pit because they can't breathe. So bein the Rabbanon, bein the Rabbi Yehuda, kelim b'nei havlaninu, whether according to the rabbis who require a pasuk to exclude vessels, whether according to Rabbi Yehuda who includes vessels, but I don't understand, vessels don't shmek. They don't breathe. The foul air makes no difference to them. So the Gemara says, actually, brand new vessels are very sensitive to foul air, and the foul air in the pit can break these vessels, and therefore that is why they need to be excluded. Excluded according to the rabbis, and they're included according to Rabbi Yehuda, if we understand like Rav talks about with the Hevel. Perfect Gemara. How could we learn out from Vameis Yelo that anything that is alive would be chayiv in a pit, including Ophis? But we need that pasuk of Vameis Yelo like Rav. Rav that says Rav shor psudei amukudashin shenafal lebor potter. That an ox of psudei amukudashin, for example, an ox that was meant to be a korban, but then got a mum, so you redeemed it, and then it falls into a pit, your potter shenemar, as the pasuk says, Vameis Yelo, that the carcass will belong to him, b'misha ameis shelo, so it has to be a scenario where the carcass can belong to this carcass of the animal can belong to the owner of the animal. Yotzeh she'ein ameis shelo, to the exclusion of psudei mukdashin, where the owner would be unable to do anything with the carcass, because the only thing you could do with a redeemed korban in this scenario would be to slaughter it and to eat it. But now that it fell into a pit and it died that way, so it's an avela, there's nothing you can do with it. So we need Vameis Yelo to exclude Shor Psudei Mukdashin, not to include birds. Selo Makro, rather, says the pasuk, Kesef Yoshiv Levailov. The pasuk says, in the context of the pit, that money will be returned to the Be'alim, to the owners. The Rabbos call the Islay Bailim, to include anything that can have owners, any kinds of animals, boys. Okay, but vessels and people can have owners. So Makra, the pasuk says, Shor v'lo adam, chomer v'lo kelim. Well, that's why we have the other pasuk that says, or even the same pasuk? No, a different pasuk, but in the same context, that only shor, but not adam, chomer v'lo kelim, because otherwise I would think that yes, anything that has an owner would be liable if it falls into a pit, but nope, it's the exclusion of people and vessels. So now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that vessels you would be chayiv for if they break in a pit, b'shlam shor memait bei adam. So I understand why when we have shor, chomer, so shor is the exclusion of people, but el chomer mai memait bei. But what does Rabbi Yehuda exclude from the word chomer? The Chacham say shor v'lo adam, chomer v'lo kelim. Rabbi Yehuda says shor v'lo adam, but he includes kelim. So what are you excluding from chomer? Elo Marava rather says Rava Chomer Debor, the Rabbi Yehuda. So the word Chamor, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the context of a pit, V'sed Aved L'Divrei Akol, and also in the context of this is a totally separate thing. In the context of Hashavas Aveda, it says Al Kol Avedas Achicha, I believe, right? Any lost object. But then it also specifically mentions out Shor Se, I think maybe Chamor Mishor Ad. I don't know, Chamor Ad Se Chaim or something. I don't know. With the pasuk by Hashavas Aveda mentions all of these different animals. The question is, why do we need them? So the Gemara, apparently above Metzia, explains why we need all these things, but it doesn't explain why we need seh. So basically, Chamor, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the context of bor, and seh, in the context of Hashavas Aveda, kasha, we don't know what we learn out from these words. We don't know what we learn out from the word Chamor, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So now the Mishnah, I said, Nafal Sochol Shor Chereshote V'Kohen Chayev. The question is, what exactly does this mean? That's what we're going to jump into right now. But if a Shor Chereshote V'Kohen falls into a pit, Chayev, what does that mean? My Shor Chereshote V'Kohen. Well, somebody explain to me what this means. Right? A Shor Chereshote V'Kohen falls into a pit, Chayev. Ilem a Shor Shel Cheresh, Shor Shel Shote, Shor Shel Kohen. If we say, well, if the ox of belonging to a cheresh, or belonging to a shote, or belonging to a kohen falls into a pit, so then the owner of the pit is chayiv. But hashor shel pikeach potter. But if that same ox belongs to a pikeach, then the owner of the pit is potter. No, why? Why? What would be the difference of who owns the ox with regard to damages in a pit? Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, Shor Shehu Cheresh, Shor Shehu Shoite, Shor Shehu Kohen. Ho ho. So Rabbi Yochanan says, no, it's talking about the ox itself. If the ox is a Cheresh, if the ox is a Shoite, if the ox is a Kohen, and falls into a pit, potter. Hashor Shu Pikeach, Chayev. Hashor Shu Pikeach potter. So does this imply that an ox that is a Pikeach, a regular ox, you'd be potter? Again, what gives? So Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Lo miboya ka'amar. It's not only this, but even that. Lo miboya shor sho pikeach the chayiv. Okay, obviously, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, we're actually going to see in a few minutes that this isn't so obvious, but obviously, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, an ox that is a pikeach, that falls into a pit, you'll be chayiv. Aval shor cheresh shoyte v'kohen. But a shor that is a cheresh, a shor that is a shoyte, a shor that is a kohen, I might say, charshusoy gormelo, katnuso gormelo. I might be able to come up with rationalizations to support the plight of well, I guess in this case it would be why the owner of the pit should be potter, right? You say, look, they didn't die because of my pit. It died because it's a cheresh. It died because it's a shoite. The owner of the pit should be vili potter. The owner of the pit should be potter. Kamash Malan, that not only are you chayav by a shor that is a pikeach that falls into your pit, but even if the shor is a cheresh, even if the shor is a shoite, even if the shor is a kohen, still the owner of the pit is going to be chayav. Amalei Rav Acha, the Ravina. Rav Acha says to Ravina, Ve'atane, but we learn in the Brisa, Nafal l'socho bardas potter. Ho. We have a Brisa that says that if a bardas, if one with das, right, falls into the pit, potter. My love, shor bardas. We're talking about an ox that is a pikeach that falls into a pit. We're saying potter. Amleilo odom. No, we're saying an odom that is a bardas. A bardas, a person that falls into a pit. You're going to be potter because it says shor v'lo odom. Elmiato odom ben dasu de potter halab ben das de chayiv. But then does that imply that a person who is a pikeach that falls into a pit, the owner of the pit is potter, but a person who is a cheresh shoyte v'kohen that falls into a pit, the owner of the pit would be chayiv, but shor v'lo adam. It says shor v'lo adam. It's the exclusion of people, regardless of if they are a pikeach or a cheresh. So ela my bendas min bendas. So rather it means, when it says ben das, it means a species that has das, i.e. humans. Any human that falls into a pit, the owner of the pit will be potter because shor v'lo adam. Shor v'lo adam. The owner of the pit will be potter because of shor v'lo adam. Shor v'lo adam. Okay, fine. So if a human falls into a pit, potter, but if an ox, whether it's a pikeach, whether it's a cheresh or a kohen, that falls into a pit, chayiv. But we learn in a brisa, nafal socho shor ben das potter. But we have a brisa that says that if an ox that is a pikeach falls into a pit, potter. Hello, my Rove. Rather says Rove. Shor v'hu cheresh. Shor v'hu shoite. Shor v'hu ka'in davka. That davka you're chayav if the shor is a cheresh, the shor is a shoite, the shor is a ka'in. Aval shor v'hu pikeach potter. But a shor that is a pikeach is potter. My time will come to boile ayune umezel, because a shor that is a pikeach should watch where it's going, and therefore the balabor is going to be potter. Taninam yochiv yochid in a brisa like this. No filosocho shor cherishote v'kotin. If an ox that is a cherish, that is a shote, that is a kotin falls into a pit, visuma, or if the ox is blind, umahalich balayla, or an ox that's a pikeach but falls into a pit at night where it can't see good, chayiv. So in all those cases, the balabor is chayiv, but pikeach umahalich bayom potter. An ox that's a pikeach and is walking in broad daylight where it can see, well then, boy, what was it? Boile ayune umezel, that it needs to watch where it's going. Ox boy. Although ox boy would refer probably to the owner, not the ox itself. The ox itself is probably just ox. Says the Mishnah, Echad shor ve'echad kol behema. So whether we're talking about an ox or whether we're talking about any animal, l'nefila sabor, when we're talking about an animal that falls into a pit, u'la'afroshos arsinai, right? It's said by Arsinai that, right? I think it said, right? In be'ema im ish, says Rashi. Right, it's talking about sticking away from the, staying away from the cow, I believe. From Arsinai, I believe. Right? It says you can't, everything's got to stay away. V'tashlume kefil. Also, if an animal gets stolen, so the kefil payments, the double payments for the theft, l'shavas aveda, and having to return a lost object or animal, the frika, right? If you see an animal that is struggling under its load, so to help remove the load, la chasima, that it says lo sachsam shor bedisho, that you cannot muzzle a cow while it is threshing. You have to allow it to eat. The kilayim. There's two options for what this means: either for mating two different species together, or it could refer to plowing a field. You can't have two different species of animals that operate at two different speeds. You can't have them plow together. Vila Shabbos, and then you have to allow your animals to rest on Shabbos. So all of these scenarios apply both to whether it's a shor or whether it's any behema. V'chein chayav of, and additionally, it includes chayas, right? Things like deer, camels, I believe. I don't know. Well, I don't know about. Let's say deer, va'of, and also birds. Kayotze ben apply as well. Imkein laman emar shor or chomer. So then, why does it say shor or chomer if it applies to all of the things? Because the pasuk is talking about the most sort of common animals, but in a chinami it could apply to other animals. Oichit. Says the Gemara, the nefilas habor. Okay, so now we're basically going to go through all these scenarios. Right? We mentioned nefilas habor, afasha sasina, tashlum kefil, etc. We're going to go through all the examples. So the nefilas habor, if we're talking about all of these animals falling into a pit, kesef yoshiv levailov ksiv, as we said earlier, that it says kesef yoshiv levailov called the islay bailim, anything that has owners kedamarin, as we had said earlier. Lafroshas arsinai, for sticking away from Harsinai during Matan Torah. So it says im behema im ish lo yechye. So it says whether it's an animal, whether it's a person, it will not live. V'chay b'chlal behema, and chayes are included in behemas. Havya im l'rabas ha'ofis. And when it says right im behema im ish, so im is going to include also birds. The tashlumi kefel, when it comes to double payments for theft, kedaminan, as we said, al kol dvar pesha, al kol dvar pshia. So any kind of criminality, whether it's behemoths, chayas, ophis. Lashavas aveda, for returning lost objects, l'chol aveda sachicha. It says all of the lost objects, including all types of, animals and birds. Lefrika, that if you have, the pasuk says, Yalav chomer mishabes, the pasuk says, in this context, it says, Kisira chomer sonach harovitz tachas masov v'chadat me'azav lo azov tazav imo. That if you see a donkey that's struggling under its load, you got to help it out. So it's not just donkeys, it applies to all animals. And we learn out from Gzeir Shava from Shabbos. We're going to see now a few examples of learning out from Shabbos. We're going to see soon how do we know that Shabbos applies to all these different animals. But for now, assume that Shabbos applies to all these animals. And so we learn out, it says Chomer by Frika, and it says Chomer by Shabbos. So it applies, both apply to all the animals. Nachsima, that it says do not muzzle the mouth of a shore of an ox when it is threshing. So Yalav shor mishabes. So it says shor by Chasima, and it says shor by Shabbos. So it includes all the animals and birds. The kilayim, and when it comes to kilayim, kilayim the charisha. If we're talking about kilayim of plowing, don't have like a what is it supposed to say? Don't plow with an ox and a donkey together, because they're going to operate at different speeds and it's going to be a mess. So Yalav shor mishabes. Well, we learn out shor from Shabbos to say that it applies to all the animals. Kilayim darba, and if we're talking about kilayim of mating two different species together, Yalav be'emtecha mishabes. It says lo sarbia be'emtecha kilayim, I believe. So that's by mating, and then it says be'emtecha and Shabbos, so it applies to all the animals. V'gabi Shabbos minolan, and how do we know that on Shabbos it applies to all the animals? The Tanya is within the Brayso. Rabbi Yossi Omer Mishuma Bishma B'dibris Harishonis Nemer. It says in the first luchis that from Parshas Yisroi, Avducha v'amoscha uvehemtecha. Okay, your eved, your amo, and your animals. Uvedibris achronis nemar. It says in the second dibris, v'shorcha v'chamorcha v'chol behemtecha, and all of your animals. V'alo shor v'chomer bichlal kol behema hayu. So now if it says v'chol behemtecha, so all of your animals, that obviously includes oxen and donkeys. V'loma yasu. So why did we specify shorcha v'chamorcha? Loma lecha, to say to you, mashor v'chomer omer kan chayev va'of kayotze boyen. Just like when it says shor v'chomer over here, it says it in the context of v'chol behemtecha, that includes all animals. So af kol chayev va'of kayotze boyen. So also whenever we compare scenarios to this scenario, when any place we're talking about shor or chomer, it's coming to include chayev va'of, just like over here where it says v'chol behemtecha. But ema affecting Gemara, I will suggest behema de dibris harishonis klal, that when it says avducha v'amoscha v'emtecha by the first dibris, so behemtecha, that includes all animals, it's a klal. Shorcha v'chamorcha de dibris achronis prat. And then when it says shorcha v'chamorcha by the second dibris, that's a prat. So klal ufrat ein bichlal el mashe befrat. So I'll say that actually on Shabbos, the only things that need to rest, the only animals that need to rest are only shor and chomer. Shor v'chomer in midei achrine lo. Only shor and chomer need to rest on Shabbos, no other animals. Amrei v'chol behemtecha de dibris achronis chazer v'cholo. Well, I'll say yes, but then it says v'chol behemtecha, that's a second klal. Klal ufradu klal. When you have a klal ufradu klal, yatadon ela ke'ena prat. So we include things that are similar to the prat, that are similar to shor and chomer. Ma prat miforish ba'alei chayim. Just like the prat are things that are alive, avkol ba'alei chayim, so all things that are alive. Ve'ema prat miforish darvish and veloso mitamel b'mago v'masa. But I'll suggest that shor and chomer, like we said earlier, are mitami b'mago v'masa. Av kol darvish and veloso mitami b'mago v'masa. So also anything else that it's nevela is mitami b'mago v'masa. Aval ofis lo, to the exclusion of ofis. Amrim Kein Nichtav Rachmana Chad Prata. To which the Gemara says this is just like we said earlier. If it was coming to exclude Ofis, it would only say either Chamar or Shor. But it says both to include Ofis. But what do you mean it would only say one? Hey Nichtav, which one would it write? Hey Nichtav Rachmana. Because of Rachmana Shor, if it would only say Shor, Havamina Karev L'Gab Mizbeach in, Shenu Karev L'Gab Mizbeach lo. I would think only the animals that are offered on the Mizbeach would be included, but not other animals. Because of Rachmana, Chomer, therefore it says Chomer, which is not offered on the Mizbeach, even a Chomer is included. Because of Rachmana, Chomer, but if it would only say Chomer, Havamina Kadosh B'Bechora in, only animals that have the holiness of the firstborn, She'en Kadosh B'Bechora lo, to the exclusion of animals that do not have the holiness of the firstborn, because of Rachmana Shor, therefore it also says Shor, to say that it's not limited to those that have Kedushas Bechor, but all animals. But I would still say, to the exclusion of Ofis, that are not metame b'magav masa. Elo v'chol be'emtecha ribuya hu. But when it says that v'chol be'emtecha, right, shorcha v'chamorcha v'chol be'emtecha, it's a riboy, it's coming to include all things, including Ofis. V'chol eicha v'chaz v'achmana kol ribuya hu. So is that to say that whenever it says kol, it is inclusive, to include everything, but v'agabi meiser, but by meiser sheni dichsiv it says kol, but by Meiser Sheni, when it talks about which foods you can spend your Meiser Sheni money on in Jerusalem, it says kol, and we don't learn it out to say that it includes everything. Rather, we learn it out from Klal Ufrat. The Tana is we learn in the Brayso of Nasata Akesef B'chol Asher Taive Navshecha, that you could spend the money in your Meiser Sheni money in Jerusalem with anything that you so desire. So Klal, so that's a general rule. B'chol Asher Taive Navshecha. Babakor vatzon bayaynu vashecher, but then it mentions cows and sheep and wines and beers, intoxicants. Prat, those are specifics. But then it says anything you desire. Chazer v'kalal. So it's another klal. Klal u'faru klal. You have to do an elo keina prat. And when you have a klal u'faru klal, so we judge it like the prat. Ma prat meforish. Pri, v'gidulei karka. So just like the examples listed, right? Bakar, tzon, yayin, shecher. These are things that come from another fruit, right? Wine comes from a grape. A cow comes from another cow. So v'gidulei karka, and essentially grow from the ground. I guess, cows eat from the ground. So I've called pri v'gidulei karka. So also we'll include pri and gidulei karka. Or unless it's talking about the, I think it's saying that even the oxen and stuff eat from the ground. Shukuni zonis, right. To the exclusion of, fish, mushrooms, truffles, salt, things like that. So we see that even though it says kol in the context of Meiser Sheni, it is being learned now with Klal Ufrat, not to include absolutely everything. So bichol klala kol ribuya. So it says bichol is klal ufrat, but kol, such as kol be'emtecha, right? So to the exclusion of bikol, so kol is a riboy coming to include everything, which is why all the animals and birds are included. Ibai same alternatively, kol nami klala hu, that kol in general could also be klal ufrat, but miu hai kol dehacha ribuyahu. But in this context, the v'chol be'emtecha is a riboy because midahavle lemichtav uvehemtecha kidichsiv b'dibris harishonis. Well, in the first dibris it doesn't say kol be'emtecha; it only says be'emtecha. So it could have said the same thing by the second dibris, v'chasav v'chol, but it says v'chol be'emtecha shmamina ribuya. It's to say that it's learned it as a riboy, not as a klal ufaru klal. Hashadu amrat kol ribuyahu. So now, if we're saying that kol is a riboy, that says v'chol be'emtecha by the second dibros, so therefore it includes all of the animals. Well then, be'emtecha de dibros rishonis, v'shor v'chomer de dibros achronis lamali. Then why do I need be'emtecha in the first dibros? How come I need shor v'chomer in the second dibros? Ultimately, everything's being learned out from v'chol be'emtecha to include absolutely everything. So then, if we're included everything from there, then I don't need shor v'chomer and the first be'emtecha. So amrei shor lagmure shor lachsima. Well, we need shor in order to be able to learn the gzeir shava to say that by chasima it also includes all the animals. Chomer lagmure chomer lefrika. And I need chomer so we can make the gzeir shava for prika to say that includes all the animals. Be'emtecha, and the first be'emtecha lagmure be'emtecha l'kilayim, in order to make the gzeir shava for kilayim to say that those apply to all the animals. Yachi, if that's the case, afilu adam litzer. So if that's the case, that we're including, everything, so then even a person should be asar alama tanan. Why do we learn in the Mishnah adam muter im kulan lachosh v'limshoch, that a person is allowed to, plow, I guess, if plow together with an ox or something, right? The concept of mixing when it comes to plowing is only for different animals, not for people. But why not include people? It says v'chol, anything that's alive. Amar Papa says Papa papunoi yade time milsa umanu of Acha bar Yaakov. The Papunein knows the answer to this. Who's the Papunein? It's of Acha bar Yaakov. Amar Kra, the pasuk says liman yanuach avducha v'amoscha kamocha, so that your Eved and your Amma will rest like you. La'anocha he kashtiv v'lo l'davracha. That this comparison in the context of Shabbos is only for resting, but would not extend to other things like plowing together with an ox and things like that. Friends, that was Daf Nun Daled of Masechta BavaKama. We started off with the machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda about the Rabbanan say that you're potter for niskei kelim babor. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv for niskei kelim babor. We talked about a shore that is a cherish, the shore that is a shoyta or a cotton that falls into pit. The balabor is chayiv, but by a pikeach it should have looked where it's going. And then we learned on the Daled Beis how we include sort of all animals in all sorts of cases. Friends, that was Daf Nun Daled of Masechta BavaKama. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.